Turns out there are still real statesmen in this country. At least there are over at the Federal Reserve. President Trump has spent years smearing, bullying, threatening to fire, even criminally investigating Fed Chair Jerome Powell, all because Powell would not bend to the president's will. And now Powell's term as chair is about to end in a couple of weeks. But rather than riding off into the sunset, he just announced his plans to stay working at the Fed. It's an unusual choice, like who wants to stick around after a demotion. But Powell says it is necessary, given Trump's legal threats against him and the president's ongoing efforts to politicize the independent central bank.
These legal actions by the administration are unprecedented in our 113-year history, and there are ongoing threats of additional such actions. I worry that these attacks are battering the institution and putting at risk the thing that really matters to the public, which is the ability to conduct monetary policy without taking into consideration political factors. It is so important for our economy, for the people that we serve, that they can depend over time on a central bank that operates that way, free of political influence.
Powell also had a little fun when asked by a reporter whether he plans to keep a low profile while staying on the board. Take a look.
You mentioned that staying on as a governor, you intend to keep a low profile. I'm just wondering if you could give us a little more detail on what that looks like and how you can. Touché.
Joining us now to discuss University of Michigan professor Justin Wolfers. Justin, first, talk to us about Powell's decision here and what it means for Fed independence. Do you think it was the right choice? Do you think it matters? What happens to the Fed now that he's sticking around?
Oh, I thought you meant his decision to tell a joke. It's fantastic.
It's not every day that economists have that sense of humor, but.
And it's only taken Jay 6, 7, 8 years to get there. So it's been building towards that moment. And it was quite an extraordinary moment for the U.S. economy. Powell, it's not Trump versus the Fed. It's Trump versus the American people. The question here is, should the Fed make policy in the best interest of the American people? That's what Congress told it to do. That's what Powell and the Fed has been doing. What has upset Trump is that he's not doing it in the best interest of Trump and Trump's political interests instead. So those are the stakes. What cards does Powell have left? He's really only got one, which is his time as chair is over. He's not going to be renominated, but he has the right to stay on as a governor for several more years still. And he's not going to give up that card, that bit of leverage, in order for Trump to put in another sock puppet. And so he's going to hold on to that card, even if that just means turning up to 8 meetings. But he's using that card, I think, very much for the best interests of you and I, the American people, a way of defending the institution.
Justin, I was just hoping you could break down what is actually happening with the economy right now, because the predictions are so all over the place. We're nearing a recession. All of the value is in AI, and that's artificially propping up the economy. And then you have Shiller's out with a chart saying that stocks haven't looked this overvalued since the dot-com bubble. So what exactly is the health of the economy? And I note that the economic experts behind Kalshi that are betting on the prediction market put the chance of recession from 40% to 17% yesterday.
Yeah, so what's going on with the state of the economy? It's really hard to tell. That's the most honest answer I can give you. Look, I could be like a Wall Street guy and come on and tell you confidently I knew exactly what was going on. That would make me look amazing, but it wouldn't serve your viewers. Look, there's a lot of things going on. The most important thing going on, the most important economic thing going on is, in fact, the war in Iran. It's not just shutting down global oil markets. It's also fundamentally changing America's fiscal position. This is already a government which has decided to spend, go into debt. And more spending on defense is literally hundreds of billions of dollars. It's a story that's not being told very widely, but I think is really quite important. In terms of the current pace of what's going on with the economy, growth in the last quarter was 2%, moderate. But remember, that comes after the end of 2025. In the end of 2025, we had a government shutdown. And so basically what that did is it moved a whole lot of economic activity from late 25 through to 26. So the latest numbers look better than reality really is. So over the last 6 months, the economy's grown at 1.25%. That's what you call disappointing. And all of that growth has come from the AI sector.
So just to follow up on that, Justin, the stock market is something that Donald Trump loves to tout. He lives and dies by it. He loves to promote it as if it's the end-all, be-all of the American economy with record numbers. How do you explain what is happening with the stock market, and do you anticipate that there is going to be a sell-off or a correction when it comes to the stock market specifically?
Right. So, first of all, if I knew which way the stock market was going, I wouldn't tell you. I'd just go and bet a lot of money. I'd be rich. But your question's a good one, and it depends really. Markets can embed a lot of information and can, in fact, be very, very helpful. So I'm not talking about markets because I love them or because I want rich people to get richer. It's because they tell us it's people betting on the future of the American economy. And if the question is the market doing well because of or in spite of what's going on in Iran? The answer is overwhelmingly no. Because in order to figure out, does the market like what's going on in Iran, you'd have to say, what does the market look like if we are at war versus if we're not at war? We don't know both of those things. But what we do know is every time the president becomes more belligerent, the market falls. Every time he de-escalates, the market rises. The market has a very clear judgment on war in Iran. It's very, very bad for American business. And global markets think it's even worse in other countries. The market as a whole is up. That says there are other reasons to be optimistic. A big part of that reason is AI, but it's not the whole story.
So, Justin, my colleague Eamon just asked about stock markets. I also want to ask you about what's going on with bond markets, or more specifically, Kevin Warsh has basically gotten this job, or is likely to get the job, to succeed Jerome Powell as Fed chair because Donald Trump expects him to cut interest rates. If you look at where markets are, they do not expect interest rate cuts for basically the foreseeable future, at least for the next year and a half. How easy or difficult will it be for Warsh to deliver on that expected rate cut, that perhaps promised rate cut that Donald Trump is counting on him to give?
Yep. So let's get the facts out there, which is before the war in Iran, markets had factored in 2 or 3 more rate cuts coming through the rest of this year. The war basically has meant the end of those. The war raised oil prices, raised inflation, made it harder for the Fed to cut rates. Markets expect nothing good to happen as a result. So markets are saying that Trump has destroyed the rate cuts that he hungered for by going to war in Iran. Now, the moral consequences of each are vastly different. I don't want to confound that. The question is, can Warsh deliver on what the president wants? Warsh is the Fed chair. Historically, Fed chairs have been very, very strong. They've usually had the majority with them. Now, chairs move towards the committee. And the thing is, it's a committee of 12. And trust is something that's earned, and respect is something that's earned, and he hasn't earned that yet. So expect that Warsh is one of 12 votes rather than the entire Federal Reserve, which means I think it's unlikely we're going to see a particularly dovish turn.
Justin Wolfers, thank you so much for being with us.